What does it mean to be truly rich? Is it about having endless lands, overflowing barns, and gates of gold? Or is it something else entirely? Today, we journey to a small, sun-drenched village in the heart of the Philippines to uncover a story about true wealth, a story that has been passed down for generations. In this village, nestled among green fields and humble nipa huts, lived two farmers. They were neighbors, but their hearts were worlds apart. The first was Don Pedro. He was the wealthiest man for miles around, owning vast fertile lands that stretched as far as the eye could see. His granaries were always full, yet his gates were always locked. Don Pedro was known for his greed and his unkindness, never sparing a single grain of rice for those in need. Right next to Don Pedro's grand estate was a small, rocky patch of land owned by a young farmer named Juan. Juan was poor. His farm was difficult to till, and his harvests were meager. But what he lacked in material wealth, he more than made up for in spirit. Juan was incredibly hardworking and possessed a heart overflowing with generosity. He lived in a tiny hut with his aging mother, who had taught him a lesson he carried with him every single day. She would often say, "Son, kindness is the greatest wealth you can possess." And Juan lived by these words. No matter how little he had, he always set aside his best produce to share with a sick neighbor or a hungry family passing through. He found joy not in keeping, but in giving. One year, a terrible, unrelenting drought fell upon the land. The sun beat down with a merciless heat, cracking the earth and withering the crops. The rivers ran dry, and a feeling of desperation began to creep into the village. Even the wealthy Don Pedro started to worry as his own fields turned brown and brittle. Everyone suffered. On one particularly scorching afternoon, Juan was in his field trying to coax the last drops of water from his well to save a small patch of wilting rice plants. His back ached, and sweat poured down his face. As he worked, he saw a figure slowly approaching. It was an old man, looking incredibly frail and weary. His clothes were torn and dusty, and his face was etched with hunger and exhaustion. He looked as though he had traveled a great distance without food or rest. The old stranger made his way first to Don Pedro's massive gate. He knocked weakly and called out, his voice raspy. "Please, sir, could you spare just one handful of rice? A single cup of water?" Don Pedro appeared on his grand balcony, looking down with a sneer. "Go away, beggar!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the still hot air. "I need every last grain for myself. There's nothing for you here." With that, he turned his back and slammed his heavy wooden doors shut. Dejected, the old man turned and slowly shuffled towards Juan's humble hut. Juan saw the whole exchange, and his heart ached for the stranger. Though he knew he and his mother only had enough rice left for one final meal, he didn't hesitate. As the man approached, Juan rushed to greet him with a warm smile. "Please, Tate," Juan said, using the respectful Filipino term for father. "Come in, sit and rest. We must share what little we have." Without a second thought, Juan invited the stranger inside. He took the last scoop of rice from their small clay pot, a meal he had been saving for his mother and himself, and placed it in a bowl for their guest. He then poured a cup of clean, cool water from his personal drinking jar. He gave the stranger his entire meal, his last bit of sustenance, with a genuine and open heart. The stranger ate quietly, his gratitude visible in his tired eyes. As the stranger finished the simple meal, something magical began to happen. He stood up, and his frail, stooping form straightened. The old, torn clothes he wore started to shimmer and glow, transforming into robes of brilliant, shining light. His tired face became youthful and powerful, and his eyes shone with a divine, otherworldly light. He was no longer a weary traveler, but a powerful spirit, a dewata of the harvest, who had come to the village in disguise to test the hearts of its people. The spirit smiled warmly at a stunned Juan. "You have passed the test, Juan." The dewata's voice was like the rustling of leaves and the flowing of water. "You are the only person in this village who offered help, even when you had the least to give. Your heart is the richest field in this land. The spirit then raised a glowing hand and pointed to a dusty, deep, barren patch in one small field, where a single ordinary-looking stone lay. "This spot shall be your reward. Never move or touch the stone that rests there. As long as you leave it be, your kindness will be repaid." And with a final, brilliant shimmer of light, the spirit vanished, leaving Juan standing in awe. Juan, still trying to process what had just happened, carefully followed the spirit's instructions. The next morning, as the sun rose, he went to his field. He couldn't believe his eyes. The entire area around the untouched stone had miraculously transformed. The dry, rocky soil was now rich, dark, and fertile. Lush, green shoots were already pushing their way through the ground. His tiny patch of land had become an oasis in the middle of a dying landscape. And the miracle continued. Even as the drought raged on, one small section of the field produced an incredible harvest. The rice was the plumpest, the vegetables the sweetest, and the fruits the most plentiful the village had ever seen. His small farm yielded more than enough for him, his mother, and everyone else. Meanwhile, Don Pedro's vast lands remained barren and dry, a silent punishment for his greed. He watched with a bitter heart as Juan's farm flourished. Eventually, his pride broken and his stomach empty, Don Pedro had no choice but to humble himself and ask his poor neighbor for help. Juan, true to his nature, never became boastful or proud. He freely shared his miraculous harvest with everyone, including Don Pedro. He fed his neighbors, his mother, and anyone who came to him in need. He never forgot the lesson of the spirit and the wisdom his mother had taught him. He had proven for all to see that the richest man in the village was not the one with the largest barns, but the one with the largest heart. This story reminds us that true wealth isn't measured by what you have, but by how much you are willing to give. It's found in generosity, compassion, and the simple act of sharing.